When I look around the world today, it's easy to ask that question, where is God in all of this? If there is a God, why did the things in Haiti happen the way they've happened? When I look at friends of mine and I see that their dad has left them, or there's just so much pain in their life, or the genocide in Rwanda, that question comes up. Like, how can there be a God and he let this stuff happen? It's almost like God was good for the medieval times when the dark ages and people didn't know, but we have science now. I mean, we can grow human ears in a petri dish. We know that we can take a sheep and clone it and make a sheep exactly like it. We're even starting to clone human beings. We have science. Why do we even need to believe in this idea of God? I think one of the reasons that it's so hard to believe that there might be a God is we can't see him. Nobody's seen him. Look around. No one's coming and saying, hello, I'm God. I made everything and I'm the most powerful being that has ever existed. We can't see God. And for a lot of people around the world that go to a mosque or go to a church every week and they say these prayers that apparently never get answered, like, is there really a God? Is he listening? I don't think so. Some of you are watching this, you go to church every week or you go to your mosque every week and you can show me in your religion how God exists. You can go to your Bible or your Quran or your religious readings and you can show me from the religious readings that God exists because it says so there. But how about just using your brain, just your mind? Can you show me that God exists? Like, is there a need for God? Is there proof that God exists outside your little box of religion? Could you show me? This idea of there being no God, that God doesn't really exist, it's really attractive. Like, it lets me live my life any way I want to. It makes a lot of sense because as science comes out, we've evolved from apes over millions and millions and millions of years, and science can back it up and prove it. So because that's true, why is there any need for us to believe in any God? I totally get that. But as I think about it, I definitely don't have answers for all the questions that some people have about whether God exists and how can you prove that there is a God. But what I do know is this idea of atheism, or this idea that there is no God, is completely hopeless for your life, is completely empty. Even though it looks attractive and it makes so much sense, the questions that I have always leave me wanting because no one can answer my questions. If there's no God, what is the purpose of this life? Some of you watching this may have been raised in church your whole life, and when you go to school or you go to college and you hear the profs or maybe your friends, they laugh at the idea that there must be a God, and it's something you believe in, but you're not quite sure what to say, and so you feel self-conscious and you don't speak up. You remain quiet because you don't want to look like the silly and the stupid person because of your faith, because of what you believe in. Because it doesn't make sense intellectually to believe that God exists. And you're flirting a little bit with this idea of maybe this isn't true. What my parents have taught me, what my pastor has taught me, what I have believed my whole life, maybe it isn't true. And you're flirting with this idea of walking away from the whole thing. I'd be the first one to admit to you that I don't have all the answers to prove to you that God exists without a shadow of doubt. But I do have questions. If there is no God, where did all of this come from? Where did our universe come from? We talk about the law of thermodynamics, and And you look at the universe and how it's expanding, and it's running out of fuel, and all science points back to the universe started somewhere. It started with something. Also, the idea of if there's no God, when I look at the way everything works together, from the universe to our human bodies to everything on our planet, it works together so perfectly. And some of us would attribute that to evolution, like our bodies have just evolved and they just work, but the mathematical probabilities of all this happening by chance are so huge, it just doesn't make sense to me if there's no God. But I guess the question that I struggle with the most, if there's no God, where does this sense of morality come from that's throughout the world? If there's no God, there are no consequences for our actions. All we have is the years that we're here on earth, and then we're done. And so there should be nothing inside of us to say that there's wrong or right. But we all know that there are certain things that are evil. And all of us look at that and go, that's just wrong. And if there's something evil, then there must be something good. If there's no God, the genocide that happened in Rwanda, the hundreds of thousands of people that were butchered with machetes just because of the way they looked or the different tribe they came from, we cannot say that that is wrong, because there is no right and wrong, because there is no God. We can't look at Hitler and the Nazis and the millions of Jews that they executed in gas chambers and death marches. We can't say that that's right or wrong. When I lived in Omaha, I went downtown one time and I was sharing my faith with people, and I walked up to a police officer and I started talking to him and just asking him questions about what he believed about God. And he said he was an atheist, that he did not believe in God. And as we started talking, I found it ironic that he was a police officer, because what he did for a living was to uphold a moral conduct of how we treat each other. And we both agreed that it was almost like a joke, because his job was to impose something that absolutely was meaningless according to his worldview, that there is no God, which means there is no right or wrong. You see, if there is no God, there's no reason for us to believe in any evil or any good. It's just an existence. And nothing that you do has value at all. Which means that to abuse a little 2-year-old child isn't wrong. To rape and murder and steal, it's not wrong. But we all feel that it's wrong. We all would say, you can't do that. There's something inside of me that says that that's wrong. And so if there's no God, that's a question that I struggle with, because no one can answer that for me, where cultures all around the world, in Germany and Africa and China and India, all these cultures would say, no, that's wrong. You can't just do that. But if there's no God, you can. And so somewhere deep inside of every one of us, there are certain things that are wrong and certain things that are right. The other question I really struggle with is, if there's no God, there's absolutely no purpose to this life. And your life has zero value, no value at all. And I can't believe that. I believe you do have value. I believe there is meaning in this life, in decisions that I make, and the way I treat people. I think you do too. And so that's why this idea that there is no God, it's hard for me to swallow. So if there is a God, I want to know him. I want to meet this God that created all of this, that built this deep inside of me. I want to know him. And some of you might be watching this and say, Ty, I'm still not convinced. Like, there's nothing you can say that would make me convinced that there is a God. When I look around, I see nothing. And I'm cool with that. I'm really glad you're watching this video, but I would ask you to just ask yourself those questions. The questions I asked: is there meaning to this life? Is there moral conduct that all of us feel? Like, even the creation and the way the world fits together so perfectly. Can your worldview of there being no God, does that answer that question? And for those of you that are watching this video that believe in God already and maybe feel like you've already answered this question in your life, I would ask you to think about your life as an inspiration to others, to let them know that God is wooing them to himself. I believe the best glimpses that anyone can catch of this God that maybe created the universe is your life, the life change story, people that are living with purpose and value, and it's just glimpses of who God is through you. I've never seen God the way I've seen trees or cars or buildings, but I think I've seen the effects of God.
I see the way it glides through the trees as autumn presses in, carefully pulling at branches and leaves flutter to the ground. I feel it tangle in my hair as it dances by, leaving chills on bare skin in its wake. I catch a glimpse of the fury it brings as it rolls a storm to shore, waves crashing in applause at its force and determination. I hear it sing at midnight through rusty shutters and old cracked boards, or rasping in the desert as tumbleweed is carried helpless in its path. Who has seen the wind? Who can catch it in a jar? And who would doubt its certainty?